that, I would like to introduce you. You have a really great bio here. So Lance Miller is an award-winning speaker and trainer. He has delivered over 5,000 speeches. My, that's a lot of stage time. In over 60 countries on public speaking, leadership, and overcoming failure and adversity. His real-life experience brings fun, lively and entertaining presentations to the podium. Lessons of leadership, integrity, and responsibility and honesty are the hallmark of his messages. Lance is the CEO of TerraX LLC, providing sustainable products and technologies to the agriculture, commercial, industrial, and marine markets. His business experience spans serving as an executive with the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, Nestle, and Anheuser-Busch, to developing sales and marketing programs across 8 different industries and completing 5 new business startups. Wow. Lance is also a member of the National Speakers Association, Rotary International, and Toastmasters International. He is a distinguished Toastmaster, and in 2005, he emerged from a field of 40,000 contestants from 110 countries to win the title of Toastmasters World Champion of Public Speaking. And as I know, Lance, you are also the coach for Verity Prize, our newest winner for the International Speech Contest. So decorated. I am so excited to bring you to the stage. Please unmute yourself and join me to welcome Lance Miller.
Woo! We love you.
Thank you, Cheryl Ann. It's very nice to be with you, all the members of District 51 and all the members from all around the world. And also, Singapore has a very close place in my heart. I had a wonderful trip there where I got to meet Manoj, and then I also coached Manoj to the World Championship. So he's been a very dear friend of mine for many, many years on that. And thank you for taking the initiative in your district and with your clubs to bring in expertise to look at how to make Toastmasters work. I've been in Toastmasters for almost 30 years now. And if you know anything about my background, I joined Toastmasters in 1992. It was actually last millennium, if you want to look at it that way. And I had a club that was about 2 years old, and we had about 35 members in it. And about 6 months later, we had about 12 members coming to the club. Now, does that sound familiar to anybody, that the membership's shrinking and people aren't coming together? And
yes.
Yes. And one meeting, 5 of us met. That's all that showed up, 5 people. And we didn't have a Toastmasters meeting. We had something we call in America coffee. And we were sitting around drinking coffee, and we were saying, well, what are we going to do at the club? We were all brand new to the Toastmasters organization. We really didn't know that much about it. But really, if you looked at the club, we were the 5 people that showed up. So we could easily have been said we were the 5 most dedicated people because we were the ones that showed up that day. And we were trying to figure out if we were going to keep our club or if we were going to close the club. Now, does that sound familiar to anybody? And the reason I like to start off with this is because I want you to understand that when I came into Toastmasters, I didn't really know how to run a Toastmasters club. And my club wasn't anything. We didn't have any special water we drank, or we didn't have any special material or training materials. We were a group of human beings, like everybody on this call. We were a group of human beings that came together, and we were trying to put an organization together and to work with people, and it wasn't working. And one of the gentlemen at the meeting said, you know, if we're going to do Toastmasters, let's win with Toastmasters, or let's go do something else and win with it. But I don't want to sit here, and I don't know if this translates in Malaysia, but we have a service or a program that's called hospice. And that's when somebody's dying and the hospice comes in and takes care of them until they die. And I said, I don't want to run a hospice Toastmasters club. That's where we keep the club members comfortable until the club dies. And there's a lot of Toastmaster clubs that are like that. I know I talk to district leaders, and just so you know, I've been to over 80 districts around the world, mostly since winning the world championship. And one of the big areas I talk on is building good clubs, because I could have never become a world champion if I didn't have a good club I came out of. And one of the other people at the meeting said, well, you know, Toastmasters, now we had a different distinguished club back then, and Toastmasters used to rank all the Toastmasters clubs in the world in order, depending on how many distinguished club points they had. And they said, you know, they rank all the clubs. If we're going to do Toastmasters, let's be a top 10 club in the world. If we're going to do that, let's do something great. And we all sat around and said, God, that sounds really neat. Let's be a top 10 club. That's like being a world champion club. And we didn't know what it was going to take. We didn't know what was involved with it. And we all decided that we're going to be a top 10 club. We didn't even know what the Distinguished Club program was. Okay. And at that point, my club was like 7,500 in the world. Okay. And so we decided to build our club to a top 10 club. And it took 5 years. But in 1999, we had 95 members in my club, and we were the number 4 club in the world in Toastmasters. And that experience taught me so much about how to work with people, about how to manage people, about how to make a group work, because I didn't do that on my own, and the 5 of us didn't do it on our own. The whole club had to do it. The whole club wanted to be a top 10 club. Now, for those of you on the call that I can see, so I'm going to switch back over to my gallery view. Okay, I can see some faces. How many people here have ever been the vice president of education in your club?
I
have. Okay, I got a lot of hands. Okay, a lot of hands.
Many times.
Right, many times. So I like to ask this. Around May, when you're vice president of education, what happens around May? Now, normally when I ask this in a live seminar, people say you're begging people to finish a speaking level so you can get your points in, right? You're calling them up and you don't have your distinguished club points in, and you're begging people and you're saying, please, please, you only need 2 more speeches. Would you finish your level? And they always speak with like a nasal tone. They go, well, I don't really want to do that. I want to do it when I want to do it. And, you know, I don't want to be pushed. And this is when I realized that I had experienced something in Toastmasters that most clubs have not experienced. In my club, especially those last 4 years when we were coming up in the ranks, and just so you know how it went, the first year, all we did was fill the forms out, and we went to 156 in the world, which meant most of the clubs weren't even filling out the form. And I think the next year we were like 58, and the next year we were 26. And in 1998, we thought we were going to make the top 10, and we were number 14. And we were like, oh man, we were so close. So the next year, we just doubled down and started pushing everything we could, but the whole club wanted to do it. Now, here's what happened to the vice president of education. And this is one of the things I'm going to talk about today, is that you build a team and everybody is on it. And the members of the club were calling the vice president of education, said, you haven't given me enough speaking slots to finish my CC. You find me speaking slots. I'm not going to be responsible for this club not being a top 10 club. And the vice president of education is going, all these people are calling it, yelling at me, saying I don't have enough speaking slots. Now imagine that attitude in a Toastmasters club, where the members are demanding that they finish their level before the end of the year so the club can get the points. And for a long time, I didn't realize the difference that had made for me in my life when I looked at Toastmasters clubs. And I realized that most clubs are there struggling, trying to get the members to complete a program. And one of the things that we did in my club is that and this was a surprise, and I have a number of things to go over with you today, but the Toastmasters program works if you do the program. You know, and I know we have a lot of people from a lot of different religions, but when I was growing up, I was in the Christian religion, and I remember we had a preacher preaching one day, and he said, sitting in a church won't make you into a Christian any more than sitting in a hen house will make you into a chicken. Okay. And so I want to say, sitting in a Toastmasters meeting will not make you a good speaker or a good leader any more than sitting in a hen house full of chickens will make you into a chicken. You have to do the program. And one of the things that the first thing we did is we called our members up and we asked them what did they like about coming to the meeting and things. I'm going to share some of those things with you, but we also asked each member to complete a speaking level. Now, this was back under the other program. I will talk about pathways, but this was under the other program, and the speaking levels had 10 speeches in them. So we asked them to finish a speaking level every year, is what we asked them to do. And that was the surprise. We asked them to do that so we could get the points. But that was the turning point in my club. And the primary reason was, excuse me, we got people to do the program. And when they did the program, their life changed. It was that simple. Now, I compare Toastmasters a lot to an exercise program. And most people that come into Toastmasters because they're not good speakers, because they're not good leaders, because they don't know how to communicate, or they don't know how to help other people. Most people don't really even know how to be a team member on a team. So they come into this Toastmasters club. We ask them to speak. And of course, they get nervous. And they get so nervous that I had to have people speak and they go, I'm so nervous, I'm not going to speak for 6 months. Well, if you went to the gym to work out and you were out of shape, you're fat, you're out of shape, you haven't worked out in a long time, and you go to the gym and work out, how are you going to feel the next day? You're going to feel sore, right? That's like being nervous and speaking. Now, if you go to the gym and work out one day and you go, I'm so sore, I'm not going to work out for 6 months. How are you going to feel when you work out in 6 months? You're going to be sore again because you lost all the gain you got from that one day you worked out. And anybody that's ever exercised knows you have to exercise like 3 times a week, and you're going to be sore for 2 or 3 weeks. But after 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're going to get over your soreness and you're going to start feeling the muscle build. And what we saw in our speakers was when we got them to speak frequently, they started keeping the gain from each speech that they made, and they started to improve their lives because we got them to do the program. And one of the biggest things I see with clubs is that people don't speak frequently enough. They're not active enough in the club to get the benefit out of Toastmasters. And when they don't get the benefit out of it, there's no reason for them to come. It's just like you go to the gym and you work out and you don't feel any difference in your body, you stop going to the gym after a while. And so that was a big thing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, I'm going to talk to you about actually quite a bit about that, but, and I'll share with you what we're doing in my club right now. And just so you know, I'm back in this year as president of my club for the 3rd time. And my club's in a little bit of a rebuilding stage right now. We're not 95 members. We just had our renewals and we have 30 members in the club right now. And my goal is to try to get us back up to about 50 this year. I think a good Toastmasters club is between 40 and 60 members. Toastmasters clubs that have 20 members in them are too small to really be effective. And one of the things I'll talk about, you lose about 1/3 of your membership every year. So if you want to have a good solid club, I want 40 to 60 people in that club. And now you have a lot of people you're working with. And there's some other problems that causes, but they're the types of problems you want to have. You're not begging people to show up for a meeting. You have people standing in line waiting to speak. Now, here was the other turning point. And that was that when we called the members up and we asked them, what did you like about coming to the meeting? We didn't say, why aren't you coming to the meeting? We said, what did you like about coming to the meeting? Because we figured something had changed. And the number one reason that our members told us they wanted to come to the meeting was not to become a great speaker, was not to get over their stage fright, was not to be an effective leader. That's not why they like coming to the meeting. The number one reason across the board was to have fun. The number two reason was to see their friends. They liked the group and they wanted to have fun. The number three reason was to become a better speaker, become a leader. And what we realized, if we didn't have a fun, friendly environment, people weren't going to come to the meeting. And we also saw why our club was failing at that point, because we had two presidents in a row that were not fun and friendly. They tried to rule with an iron fist, and they'd make up laws and they'd put rules in, and they would tell people they weren't doing well, and they had a lot of negative energy, and they were trying to order people around. Well, the problem with Toastmasters is you can't cut anybody's pay. and you can't reprimand them like that. The bottom line is, if they're not enjoying it and it's not a safe, fun place to come, they're going to stop coming. And so we have our own policy in our club, and we have a whole hat pack. I'll grab it right here. See, it's up on my shelf right here. We have a whole book we put together with all of our policies and how we run our meetings, and we write our own policy in addition to what the Toastmaster policy is. But our senior policy that we have is we have to maintain a fun, friendly environment. And we have something we call our meetings have what we call the spirit of play. They're fun. And if meetings go off the rails and you get bad evaluations and somebody gives a speech that upsets everybody, that happens in my club too. But we always turn it at the end of the meeting to a fun, friendly environment. We make sure that we work on that, and we maintain that in the club, and we can monitor our club attendance by if we're having fun, or if we had 2 or 3 meetings where it was really negative and people were complaining. And by the way, we do talk to those people outside the meeting. We don't do it in the meeting. We talk to them outside the meeting and saying, we maintain a fun, friendly environment in this club. And we've had to have some people we've had to ask to leave because they didn't want to be fun and friendly. And the truth is, they weren't fun and friendly in the rest of their life either. So they came to our club and they were doing what they did in the rest of their life. We also had a lot of people that came to the club and they weren't fun and friendly, but they learned how to be fun and friendly. And then their life started going better because they learned how to be fun and friendly. And I can tell you all sorts of horror stories about people that weren't fun and friendly and how to handle it. But with that is the attitude that we have in the club. And that is that this is a safe place to make mistakes. As I said, we all come into Toastmasters and we're not competent at what we're doing. And I think it's funny the way Toastmasters works. So the way it works is you take somebody who's not competent and you put them in a job, like a leadership job, like a president of the club, and they don't know how to be president of the club, or vice president of education or treasurer. They don't know how to do it. And we put them in the club, and by doing the exercise and doing the leadership program or doing the speeches, they start to become competent. Then in Toastmasters, as soon as they become competent, we replace them with somebody who's incompetent. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever been president of your club, about the time you feel like you got the thing under control, your term's up and you got to give it to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And that created another problem that I see with a lot of clubs, that you get this roller coaster effect of one person does a really good job, then the next person comes in and they don't know what that other person did. And so they don't do the good job. They have their own way of doing it, and the club starts to fail. So what we started doing was monitoring and writing down the successful actions that we had. And I really liked the other distinguished club program we had. And I want to tell you right up front, I'm not a member. I'm not from Toastmasters International. I'm relatively critical of Toastmasters International because a lot of the policies they come out with, I feel, are very counterproductive to strong clubs. And I don't pull my punches, and I'm not politically correct. And so if I say things that upset people, then as my grandmother would say, God bless you. Okay. But I really feel if we're going to get down to see how things work, we have to be able to talk about the problems and talk about the solutions and be real about them. My club has been one of the top clubs in Toastmasters for over 20 years. Last year, we were number 31 in the world on education completions. And we weren't even trying to do anything, but there's a guy who tracks all the education completions, And we were number 31 out of, what do we have, 16,000 clubs in the world. So I stand behind, I know what works in the club. So first of all, it's a safe place to fail. It's a safe place to make mistakes. So when you come into Toastmasters, you don't know how to speak. So you're going to get up and you're going to make mistakes as a speaker. And it's got to be a safe place for you to, to work out those issues. And with that, let me go into, there's 4 primary areas of development. And I'll just be honest with you too, I'm extremely disappointed with the Pathways project. We had an opportunity to really upgrade the Toastmasters program, and I don't know what the thinking was behind that. I do know a lot of international directors, and I know a lot of people. I know a lot of backstory on that. I'm working on my 4th level 5 now, so I know what I'm talking about because I've done the program. But here are the 4 levels, the 4 areas of development that we have. First, you have your communication. You learn how to communicate. And we have to realize that most of us in life, communication has been difficult. First of all, nobody did the human communication course when they were 4 years old. Okay, so the way we learn to communicate is we listen to the big people around us. And as we listen to people, we learn some right things, and we learn some wrong things. The other thing is that I'm going to pull a slide up here just for a second. Yeah, there it is. There's when we're young, host disable. Can you turn my screen sharing back on for me, please? So we got disabled somehow. When we're very young, we're very creative. And anybody who has children know that children just speak out and they say things and they're energetic. And, when you're a kid, life's exciting and you can have a stick in a box and you can create things all over the place. But what happens is that creativity that we have starts to, here we go. When we're young, we have a lot of free will and we're very creative. Okay. But the big people in our lives, which are the authorities, our parents is where it starts. Our parents tell us how to behave. And I assume this probably happened to most people. And I ask you if it happened to you. When you were a kid, was there a point in your life where you got ready to say or do something and you looked at your mom and dad and said, what would they say or do if I did that? And then based on your parents' reaction, that's what you did. Well, at that point, I say, who became the author of your thoughts and actions? You or the authorities? Because the root word of authority is author. We learn how to make the big people happy when we're young. Then we go to school and we're told where to sit. We're told what to study, and the teacher tells us what to do. Now, in my school in America, and I'm assuming this is probably worldwide, I really wasn't encouraged to speak out and give an original thought. I was encouraged to learn what other people figured out. I wasn't taught how to figure things out for myself. I learned what other people figured out. And if I sat in the seat at the right time in the right class, I learned that I would progress through the school. So what did I learn to do was follow what the authority said and sit in the seat and do what I was told. Then we go to work and we have authorities at work and they say, okay, here's your desk, sit here, show up on time. Don't rock the boat. Don't make a mess. And if we like you, someday we'll promote you. And what happens is we wind up turning over our creativity, our authorship of our own life to the authorities, waiting for somebody to say that it's okay. And in the slide, I say we can become hypnotized then by authorities. And this is one of the big things I see happens in Toastmasters is that we come into the meeting and a lot of people start to feel that if they show up on time and sit in the seat, that the club's going to be successful. Okay. And the truth of the matter is if you show up and sit in the seat at a Toastmasters meeting, your club's going to fail. Because there is no higher authority in your Toastmasters club than you. Okay, so one of the barriers we have is we have this sort of pre-programmed aspect of not really taking the leadership responsibility and the control and saying, okay, this is our club and this is what we're going to do with it. And we went through that in my club. And at the time, my club was in one of the worst districts in the world. So we didn't look to the district leadership to tell us what to do. We started to figure things out for ourselves. And let's see, I'm going to share this. I always like this slide. I've used this one on stage, and it says the meaning of life is that you have, oh my gosh, it didn't go on there right. Oh, what happened? Oh dear. I do that on stage and I'm looking behind the screen and stuff. Well, what you have to do what? You have to figure it out for yourself. And really what we learn in Toastmasters, we learn how to solve problems and figure them out for ourselves. And that's one of the big things that we really figured out in our club. Toastmasters gives us all the tools to run the club, but they don't tell us how to run the club. And in America, we have a big store called Home Depot, which sells all the lumber and the tools and the plumbing supplies to build your house. And I always tell people, you can go to Home Depot and get all the supplies to build your house, but they don't build your house for you. And that's like Toastmasters International. They'll give us all the supplies to build our club, but they don't build your club for you. It's up to you to swing the hammer and to build the club. And the state of your club is a direct relationship, is a direct picture of the cumulative leadership in your club. And I see people sit around and say, well, we should do this, or I wish Toastmasters would do that so we could be successful. What made our club successful is we said, we're going to be successful and we're going to figure out how to play the game. And we're going to, build the club. And we did. We built it up to this phenomenal club. We changed hundreds and hundreds of lives by doing that. Okay. So 4 areas of development. Let me get back to that. One is communication, and that's from prepared speeches, and it's from table topics. I have learned as much from table topics on how to think on my feet, and table topics has saved my skin more times than you can imagine, because I can handle the odd question when it comes to me. And I'm in a lot of business activities, and I've had a lot of people that were senior to me asking me questions, and I was able to handle myself properly because of table topics. And that's a huge area of development. The second area of development is speech evaluation. And in my club, we call it coaching. We don't call it evaluation. The whole idea is to coach somebody to a higher level, a more competent level. And in Toastmasters, you learn how to work with people and make them more competent. And if you look at your life, the people in your life that have helped you become more competent are probably some of the most valuable people that you know, because they made you into a better person. We learn how to do that by learning how to give speech evaluations, learning how to be the general evaluator and have a better meeting. The third area of development is effective meeting management. You learn how to run a meeting. You learn how to run it on time, how to do introductions, how to put the agenda together, how to time out a meeting. And in work, people love coming to my meetings. Most people hate coming to meetings because they don't start on time, they don't end on time, and everything in the middle is a waste of time. But I have very effective meetings. Why? Because I get to the room early, I clean it all up, I put the chairs straight, I have agendas, I have a bottle of water out there, and I'm at the front door greeting everybody when they come to them at my meeting. The meeting runs on time. I don't let people run off and take over the meeting and keep them on the time schedule. We end on time. And people go, I love coming to your meetings. They're productive and they have a great time. That has been a huge area of development in my business career because I learned how to do that in Toastmasters. And the fourth area of development is the leadership development. By being an officer in the club, you learn how to run an organization. Now you can go pay some program, you can probably pay somebody in America, you might have it there. We have a Dale Carnegie program here. It costs about $3,000 and you get like a 2-week leadership program. Or you can just run your Toastmasters club as an organization and make it work, and you'll learn how to work together. I'm going to step through the different positions and how they work together with that. So those are the 4 years of development. And so in my club, one of the things we do is we expect everybody to do all those positions. Now, as president this year, what I did, I went to every member and I spoke to them individually and I said, here's what I know. The Toastmasters program works if you do it. And we were having a hard time in the beginning of the year getting people scheduled for meetings and getting people filling up the next meeting roles and stuff like that. So I said, I'm going to ask every member of the club to commit this year to doing 10 speeches, to coaching 10 times, to being Toastmaster, to being general evaluator, and to being table topics master once, and to being a functionary 5 times. Now that's 23 positions. We meet once a week, and I know a lot of the clubs in your part of the world probably meet every other week. but that's 23 times that they have to be active in the club. And I have a chart, and they're filling in their roster on how many speeches they gave, how many times they're coaching. And I have people standing in line now waiting to be Toastmasters so they can fulfill their Toastmaster role. But the whole idea is that you're going to be in my club. You're going to get the benefits of Toastmasters because you're going to do the program. So I made that. I didn't enforce that on anybody. I talked to them. Everybody agreed to do that, which was very good. So now the meetings and everything are starting to pick up because everybody has their own personal targets that they're working for to actually do the program. And that's a critical component about building a team around and getting everybody on the same page, making your club successful. I have a target. I would like to be a top 20 club this year in educational completions. So we're trying to come up in the overall standings with where we want to be. Now, another key component you learn in Toastmasters is how to be a team member. And this is something that has really gone off the road in a lot. I know here in America, people are like this, the younger generations are this individual thing. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be part of it. You learn what it means to be a team member. If you're supposed to speak, you got to show up and speak. If you're supposed to be a functionary, you have to show up in time. Otherwise, the meeting doesn't work. So you learn the responsibilities of being a team member and how your contribution makes the whole group work. And we're very vocal on that. I talk about it every meeting. I recognize the people for the different positions they're doing. We just had my meeting today. We had a lady that was the table topics master for the first time. We had another person we had a one speech that was a panel discussion. It was a 40-minute presentation with 3 panelists. And that person had never done that before. They were way outside their comfort zone. And the lady I asked to coach that person didn't think she could do it. And I said, this is part of your growth. Do the best you can. You're going to grow from it. And I really acknowledged them at the end of the meeting that they'd all taken on roles they felt uncomfortable in doing. They felt incompetent. Because they did them, they became better people. They became more competent because they worked the program. Now, with this, the other thing is that my attitude in Toastmasters is not real. And what I mean by that, nobody gets fired for doing a bad job in Toastmasters. That's not the case for me outside of Toastmasters. Toastmasters is like going to the gym. We're here to work our muscles. We're here to make the weak muscles we have strong, and we're going to develop those so we can be effective outside of Toastmasters. So I never joined Toastmasters to be a great Toastmaster. I've actually accomplished quite a bit. I was one of the people that was very instrumental in building my home club to a top club in the world. I'm a world champion speaker, but I have done the program. I competed for 13 years. When I won the world championship, I had 17 CCs. I was a DTM, and I had already been in every office in my club. Okay, I worked the program, I did the program, and I have now the benefit from doing that. And I talk about that all the time. So I expect people, there's a expectation in our club culture that if you're in our club, you're expected to be active in the club, and we don't allow you to just sit by. Now, if somebody is really scared and nervous, we're going to work with you. But the idea is to work with you, and you're going to improve by being in the club. Let me get there's a couple barriers, as I said, that we have when people come in. And one is that, as I said, most people have been taught to sit there and be quiet. And that, if you're going to be a successful leader in the world, you don't sit and be quiet. You have to learn to stand up. You have to learn to think. You have to learn to figure things out for yourself. And with that, in building my club, we made tons of mistakes. But we wrote down the things that worked, and we kept the things that worked in. And we also kept a record of what didn't work, and we don't want to do that again. So there were a lot of things that didn't work. From that standpoint. So, like I said, we own our club. Now, one of the things that I talk about, that there's 3 reasons clubs fail. And the first reason is that nobody owns the club. What do I mean by that? Somebody owns a business. And when you own a business, when there's a problem, you solve the problem. Otherwise, the business is going to fail. Okay. Well, there's a lot of times people come into Toastmasters and they came in and there are people ahead of them. When I came into Toastmasters, I figured the people ahead of me knew what to do, and I was just going to follow what they were doing. So when there was a problem in the club, I didn't say, I'm going to solve that problem. I would say, somebody ought to solve that problem. Well, the problem was the person that came in front of me was looking at the person in front of them, and they were thinking somebody ought to solve that problem. Our club turned around and we decided to own the club, and it's our club, and we're going to build it, and this is how it's going to work, and we're going to make sure everybody's winning. The second reason that clubs fail, as I've already touched on, is they don't do the program. So people aren't doing the program, they're not getting the benefit from it. So therefore, they don't want to stay in the club. And the third reason is they don't promote. They don't promote to get new members. And I have a whole program, and we can do another talk on that sometime, on how to get new members in your club, but you've got to talk about it. You've got to invite people. What we know in our club, it takes 6 guests to make 1 member. So we track the number of guests, and we track how many times we get a new member. And we know it takes, on average, every year, it takes about 6 guests for us to get 1 new member. That's the average. So we're monitoring that. If we want to get 20 new members, I need 120 guests this year. That's the game. And then we're doing different things to invite people on an ongoing basis. We do a survey about every 2 years and ask people how they got in the club. 90% of the people came to our club because they got a personal invitation from a member. That's the most successful action that we have. You can send things out on the internet. You can do social media. You can do all that. The best way we built clubs is to ask people to come to the club. Let me tell you my experience. I had a friend of mine ask me to come to the club 8 times. 8 times. I had to be asked 8 times to join Toastmasters. I'm a world champion speaker. I built one of the most successful clubs in Toastmasters, and I had to be asked 8 times. What if he only asked 7? After 7, he quit asking me. And he didn't say, Lance, you're a terrible speaker. You need to come to Toastmasters. He didn't say that. He said, we have so much fun. You got to come to this meeting. I'm having so much fun. And I came to the meeting for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to figure out what this guy was talking about. I didn't know what Toastmasters was. And the second reason was I knew he would never stop asking me until I came. So how many times have we asked someone to come to a meeting once and they didn't come and went, oh, I don't want to ask them again. Be a pain. As we say, be a fly in the ointment. Keep asking them with a smile on your face. We're having so much fun. I want you to have fun with us. Come to our meeting. We have so much fun. Okay. So I'm going to jump back over here to my slide again. I'm going to talk about the Toastmasters game. This is a slide on the game. The game consists primarily of 2 things. Okay, first of all, every game has a beginning and an end to it. The Toastmasters game has a beginning, which is July 1st, and it has an ending, which is June 30th. Just like if you're playing a football game or cricket game, there's a beginning and an end to it. And you get points at the end of it, and you figure out who won the game. So our game time is 1 year, and we figure out how many points do we get. We get points 2 ways. We get points by getting new members to come in the club, and then we get points by getting those members through their education completions. Now, this is the old legacy program. It's a slide. I haven't changed it. I don't really want to put level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. I think those are stupid things to call your speaking accomplishments. But anyway, what you do is you get people through your education completions. That's really the simplicity of a Toastmasters game. So all the organization in your club goes about getting new members in and then getting them on the program to get through their training. And then when we get through their training, their life is changed. And they get what I call the twinkle in the eye and the spring in the step. And once we got people doing the program, they were dragging people to our meetings because we were changing their lives. They were so enthusiastic about what was happening to them in Toastmasters that they were bringing their friends to it because of their enthusiasm. Okay. Now, the team structure, I want to talk about this, which is very important. This is not taught anywhere in Toastmasters, and this was one of the things I designed when I was president the first time back in 1997. Okay. The 7 officers positions in Toastmasters represent the 7 officer position in almost any organization. So if you learn how to do it in Toastmasters, you can do it in other organizations. The first thing is you have the sergeant at arms. And one of the things that I know is you can't manage somebody if you can't measure what they're doing. So I had to figure a way to measure what the sergeant at arms does. And so what I did is the sergeant at arms creates a functional meeting space. And that means when we meet live, all the chairs are there, the meeting's set up, the thermostat, the air conditioning's on, the banners are up, everything's ready to go. And he starts the meeting on time. So the sergeant at arms gets everybody in their seat. By the way, we have a 3-hour meeting, just so you know, we meet on the weekends with a 3-hour meeting, but the sergeant at arms is responsible for starting that meeting on time. Successful clubs start on time, run on time, and end on time. And when we were a bad club and we were losing members, we were starting 10, 15 minutes late, waiting for members to show up before we started the meeting. When I was president, I said, I will start the meeting on time. Please be here 5 minutes before 9 in the morning. It only took 3 months for my members to start showing up on time. But I started that meeting sometimes with 2 people sitting in the audience. And when people walked in, they knew they were late and the meeting was already running. And what happened is people got used to the meeting starting on time and they started showing up on time. And for the last 24 years, we start our meeting on time and we end it on time. When our meeting was running 10, 15 minutes over, we started losing membership because people had other obligations to do. So the sergeant at arms sets up the meeting room. And this is like your logistics manager. This is an important job. The vice president of public relations, this is one of the worst taught positions in Toastmasters. The vice president of public relations is responsible for getting guests to the club. They do programs to get people to bring the guest in. So the way I monitor them is how many guests showed up. Then we know the vice president of membership is doing or vice president of public relations is doing their job. They get guests to come to the meeting. The guest comes to the meeting and they say, wow, this was the most incredible experience I've ever had. I wouldn't mind being a member. So they see the vice president of membership and I measure them by how many members. Okay. And then once they sign up, they go to the treasurer and the treasurer takes their check. And the treasurer has accurate financials and they collect the dues on time. So this last month, I've been talking to my treasurer twice a week, seeing how the different dues collections are doing. I've called members up to make sure we got money in. We're on top of that to make sure all the dues get in. We start collecting money. We start collecting dues 30 days before the end. We never wait till the last week. And actually all of our dues were in last week. Okay, because we work that throughout the entire month. Okay, now once they pay the check, they go to the vice president of education. And the way we do the vice president of education is the number of education completions. Okay, and when a new member comes to our club, now this was under the old legacy program, but we're doing this now with Pathways. We'll look at them, we say, where do you want to be at the end of the year? Now, when they came in, I expected them to complete their CC the year they came in. So I would target them and I would open their book up and we would talk about it. And we say, let's get a completion date for your CC. Let's have you finish your CC by June 30th, 2022. And we'd write that on the inside of their book cover and they'd sign it. And now they'd sign when they were going to complete it. So then we targeted them and we scheduled them to complete that CC by then. And then your secretary basically keeps accurate records of the meeting and keeps the liaison going with Toastmasters International. Now, what happens on this is a member comes in and they experience that, they do the program, their life changes. And they get the twinkle in the eye, they have a higher self-esteem, they're more competent, they're more confident, and they get excited and they start telling their friends and they bring them as guests. And that's exactly what happened in my club. We got people to win with Toastmasters, and when people were winning with Toastmasters, they started bringing their friends because they wanted their friends to win. Now, the last position is the president. I just want to touch on this really quick. The president does 2 things. They create winning members, and that's members that are getting through the program and getting the twinkle in their eye and the spring in their step, and they expand the club. When you come in as president, you should leave the club in a larger, better condition than you found it. More members and more education completion. That's the game. Now, what will happen is that all the officers and yourself, or what the president does is help the officers win, because every officer is going to have a frustrating time and they're not going to do it at first. So I would go meet with them personally and we'd talk about it, we'd work it out, and I tell them how great they are and how thankful I am that they're helping part of the team. I want them to have a successful experience as an officer for 2 reasons. One is I want them to get the gain. The other thing is, if they don't do their job as president, I get it. And if you want to have a bad time as president, have none of your officers doing their job, and you got to schedule the meetings, you got to set the room up, and you got to do all the PR, and you got to collect the dues, you got to schedule all the speakers. you're going to have a horrible time as president. So I learned to be an executive and run the club that way. The other thing is you're going to run into problems because you're incompetent. You don't know what you're doing. So you have to be willing to get help. And the first place I'd always get help is inside the club. I'd bring people together and I'd say, you know, a lot of the members aren't showing up on time, or they're not showing up when they said they would. Let's come up with a solution. And when you come up with a solution, if we couldn't solve it inside the club, we went outside the club and we got help from the district. We went to the top clubs in the district. We went to people that had been in Toastmasters for 20, 30, 40 years and asked them what to do. Now, fortunate for me, one of the founders of my club is has been a past international director, and she has started over 100 Toastmasters clubs, and she knows Toastmasters inside and out, and is always a great solution for us. The speaking frequency I was talking about, I want to give you this one little math formula here. Let's just say that we asked our speakers to complete one level a year. Now I've asked them to do 10 speeches, and it's going to take them in pathways wherever it takes them. But we want them winning. But the speaking frequency, the club training capacity. If you have 4 speakers per meeting and you have 50 meetings a year, how many speaking slots do you have? Well, I think all of you have gone to school. You have 200 speaking slots. Now, in the old Toastmasters program, there were 10 speeches per speaking slot, right? Or 10 speeches per speaking level. So that meant we could get 20 completions at that rate. So we do the math and schedule out how many we have. Now, just so you know, when we had 95 members, people go, oh my gosh, that must have been terrible. It was wonderful. But in order to get everybody through their speaking levels, we had 300 speaking slots, but we had 57 education completions, which is 570 speeches. We went to second meetings the second half of the year, and we would create extra speaking slots outside of the club. A lot of us went to lunch. After our meeting, we'd have 2 or 3 speakers at lunch. We would set speakers up at other clubs, but we created the speaking slots so the person could get through their level. And one of the things that I see with a lot of Toastmasters clubs is like they have a noon club with 1 hour and then get 2 speakers in and they go, well, nobody can get through their levels. What I recommend is have an extra meeting once a month. Go to somebody's house and have a nice party on their patio, or go to a bar. I don't know what you got where you are, but I said go to a bar and drink beer and eat peanuts and throw the shells on the floor and have 8 speakers that night at the bar. And everybody gets out of the regular meeting, and then they go out there and you get 8 speakers. You get as many speakers in that one meeting as you get the whole month, but it builds the camaraderie, and then people are moving through their program and they're starting to win. Okay, so those are some of the key things that I know it takes to run a Toastmasters club. But here's the key thing I want you to understand is that you have to figure out how to run your club. And when you do, it will change you. It will make you a more competent person. My entire career path changed. My leadership, my management ability changed because I learned how to inspire people, and I learned how to work with them, and I learned how to listen to them because I had to do that in Toastmasters. In most job places, I had the boss would say, this is what I need you to do, and you're not working hard enough. And if I wanted to keep my job, I had to work harder, but it was a lot of downward pressure on me. I learned how to lift people up and inspire them and get them to own their job. And that's why I've had the success in business that I have. And I've got a whole new business I'm launching right now because I was successful in Toastmasters. I learned how to do it in Toastmasters, not to be a great Toastmaster, but to be a better, more competent human being at working with human beings around the world. I don't know where we are on time. I probably talked longer than I should have, but let's get some Q&A and I'll answer any questions that you got at this point.
Thank you, Lance. We have 9 minutes for Q&A. And it's just so amazing. Just 5 years, you went from 7,500 on the list to 4th place just by changing your club culture. Like you mentioned, the spirit.
True, but I want to tell you something. That's because most clubs were struggling. Like I said, the first year we were in the top 200.
Right. But still, okay. Wow, it's amazing.
It was an amazing growth period. I got as much out of that as I did out of winning the world championship. And I always said I would have never won the world championship if I didn't have that club. And I didn't believe in Toastmasters, and I wasn't dedicated to it, and I knew the benefit, but I had a dynamic club I was coming out of that challenged me in so many ways and made me into a better speaker.
I think a lot of people can relate to you on that note. We have several questions and I would like to cluster them. So Mark McKenzie and also from Lim Hui Ping from District 102 asked about the fun. So can you define or describe what a fun and entertaining meeting would look like? Because fun has different meanings for different age groups. Well, for the people in their 80s, they just want to have fun. But for
we've
people
got
who are
9 minutes.
80
I understand the question. I understand the question. I've got 9 minutes. I want to get as many as we can. I'm not talking funny. I'm talking fun, and fun is productive. If you look at when you really enjoy things, you're productive. That means the meeting starts on time. But when the meeting starts, there's an uplifting. You keep it light. You're excited. You're enthusiastic. You're not at anger or going, okay, we're starting the meeting now. A lot of you are late. And you know you're not supposed to be late. That's no way to start a meeting. I had presidents that did that. We start, welcome to Renaissance Speakers, where people come to become better people. We have some guests in the audience. Let's hear from our guests to start off. You're enthusiastic, but the meeting moves fast. And a lot of Toastmasters meetings I'm in, they go really slow. Somebody sits there and they take 5 minutes to say what they could say in 1 minute. Okay, so you're productive and you keep it light, you keep it fun, you're not negative, you're very positive about everything. That's really, but I got to talk about the production. If you look at when you are the most, when you have the most fun in your life, it's not when you're just sitting on the beach, drinking a vodka tonic or something. That's nice to do now and then, but the most enjoyable times you have are when you're really productive. If you've ever been on a team that's winning, you're having fun winning. And that's what we create. An environment where people come in, they're challenged, they do the stuff, they meet the grade, they're making progress.
Got it. So productive and also keep it light and positive. Now, related to the twinkle in the eye and spring in the step, we have like 3 questions revolving around the same things from club coaches and presidents, former presidents. So they asked, let me just acknowledge him, District 39 Harita, District 17 Pat King, and Distinguished Toastmaster Iskander from Founders District and District 92. So essentially their questions are similar. How can you help the club and win the hearts of the members and energize the entire club and attract more members?
Well, one of the things you have to do, you have to realize you have a group that you're working with, and the essence of leadership. I read a great book on leadership. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's called The Dictionary. And the word lead means to go somewhere. It comes from a Latin word that means to go. So you have to realize you're going somewhere. And the whole idea is to get everybody on board going with you. And this is part of creating your club culture. And if you just get people to come sit in your meeting and then you go, oh, who wants to do a speech next week? And people go, I don't really want. Who wants to be table topics master? Oh, I don't know. You have to say, we create this. We say, listen, if you're in the club, we have 18 positions we fill for every meeting. If you're here, you're expected to take a position. And we let people know that you participate in the meeting and you participate in this. The other thing is there's a lot of personal communication. It's not all just done from the lectern at the front of the room or from emails. I'm on the phone with people talking to them. I had a couple members that hated Pathways with a passion, and they didn't want to do it anymore. They loved the club. And so I talked to them. I said, okay, I don't care if you do Pathways or not. You can do the old CC manual. We're going to count it as Pathways. We'll count it, but you do what makes you happy. You do what gets the benefit that you feel you're going to get the benefit from, and we'll do the administration on it. But what I did, I worked, and they became enthusiastic about the club once again. Okay, and so I will work with each member, and we have some members that are brand new and they're very nervous about things. I just encourage them. I said, no, you're going to develop into a better person by doing these programs. There's a lot of there's a lot of caring about people. A lot of realizing we have their best interest at heart, and they're in a program. We want them to get the maximum benefit out of the program. We want you to do the program. We're going to back you up, and it's okay if you mess up. It's okay to screw up, but what's important is you do it, and by doing it, you become better. So those are some of the things that I can go. That's a very long answer. That's a short answer to a long answer. Okay, that's a whole program on how you actually create that club culture. I've gone through some of the structure we put in and getting each officer to do their position and scheduling your meetings in advance. But my world champion speech was on validation, and that was what I learned in my club. We validated everybody. We constantly told people how great they were doing and thanked them for doing that. And you're showing up on time. That's fantastic. We ran our club off of validation, and we just saw people's emotional tone come up and became more enthusiastic for the club.
Right, got it. Okay, we got 2 more minutes, and you mentioned the program. So there were a few comments going on there about table topics and also icebreakers, having to do an icebreaker at every pathway. So I want to cluster. Mark McKenzie asked, given the focus on core competencies in pathways, is 10 speeches a stretch in a year? District 51, Cecilia Cox said that our members do the program. The problem is that they cannot cope as they have other priorities. And Pat King from District 17 said that people are making speeches, but they are not submitting them. Any comments?
Okay, first of all, 10 speeches in a year, there's 365 days. You're telling me you can't do 10 speeches in a year? Now, if your club meets every other week, I can understand. If it meets once a month, that's tough. Mine meets every week. 10 speeches is nothing. And it's a 5 to 7 minute speech. People will talk to me for 10 minutes on the fact they can't do a 5 to 7 minute speech, and they just talk to me for 10 minutes. Okay. So no, 10 speeches is not too much at all. As a matter of fact, if I had my druthers, I would have people doing 15 or 20. As far as Pathways does, doing an icebreaker every time. As far as icebreaker, I did 37 CCs. I did 37 icebreakers under the legacy program. Now, I don't want to do a deep dive on Pathways, but I've done a whole analysis of Pathways, and it's not an effective training program. It does not teach core competencies. It does not teach you the fundamental basics that you need. That we used to have the CC manual that went through start speaking, get to the point, do your vocal variety, do your gestures, use small word phrases, all you research a topic, all these things. You walk into Pathways, you do an icebreaker. The next thing you do is you get an evaluation with 2 speeches, and then you have to go research a topic and give it. You don't learn any of those fundamentals. And every path is identical with the exception of 3 speeches. Okay, so every path in Pathways, the 11 paths are identical with the exception of 3 speeches in each path. And those 3 speeches, there are only 4 unique speeches in the entire Pathways program. Okay, so from my standpoint, I think we need to make a ruckus and say we need a better program. But for right now, we got Pathways, we do it. That's what we do. We got it, we do it. You'll get the benefit from it from just doing it. But as far as the number of speeches, and people have other stuff going on in their life, you don't think I'm busy? I walked in to do this seminar. I'm doing this seminar at 9:30 at night for you guys. 10:30 at night here on the thing. I had a 3-hour Toastmasters meeting this morning. I'm president of. I'm in 5 other organizations. I've got a whole new corporation I'm starting. You don't think I'm busy? Yeah, I'm busy. But if you're dedicated to Toastmasters, you do the program. And that's the type of dedication I would expect members to come in. If they feel they need to get the soft skills to be more successful in life, they need to understand what they're going to get out of the Toastmasters program. This isn't, if you're going to build a good club, you're going to create a team of people that are dedicated to it and want to be there. If they want to speak every 6 months, go join another namby-pamby Toastmasters club down the road. There's plenty of them out there. You're going to join our club, you're going to do the program, you're going to get the benefit from it. And that's our attitude on it. And I'm just going to tell you this right now. High standards build strong clubs. Weak standards build weak clubs. We have high standards, we have a strong club. Speaks for itself.
Right, I think that's such a great summary. Have high standards, so we will have strong clubs. Now it's 1:31. I know there are several more really good questions, but we will have to stop. But you can stay after this to ask your questions.
I'm willing to take as many as you want, and I know you got your schedule, but I'll answer whatever you want, do whatever you want to do. So it's up to you.
Cool. We will keep the room open, but for now, we would like to have a group photo. So I will pass the session to Albert, the project manager. Over to you, Albert.
Thank you so much, Lance. Thank you. Cool.
Thanks. Let's give Lance a big round of applause.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you. Thank you, Lance.